G'day everyone, I am going to change my overrunning clutch pulley on my alternator on my 2014 D40 Navara 140 kilowatt motor. I'm going to go through the process and how we do this today. It started making rattling noise, which means it's on its way out, which means it needs replacing. That clanking noise, that's the alternator clutch pulley. So I'm going to go through the quick steps on how to do it. First things first, remove battery terminals. Make sure there's no power connected at all to the engine. You are handling with live electricity if this is connected when you disconnect the alternator. Remove the engine cover. Then remove the drive belt. You use a 14mm socket on the auto adjust pulley, which is down in there. Hard to see it. I've got a breaker bar so I can do that. I'm going to take that drive belt pulley off and just sort of leave the belt just sort of hanging there. Remove its intercooler piping. When you remove the intercooler piping, put like a little bag or something over this. Then that way you won't get shit down there. Once you remove this, then you got to remove the intake pipe and just move that up out of the way. I'm not going to remove the airbox. I just don't feel that it's necessary to remove it, so I'm not going to. I can get in there and access everything even with it there in the way. I'm pretty high up on top of this Navara because it's not got a lift kit or anything, so I'll still have plenty of access. I think the less work I have to do, the better. Remove the bottom bolt, which has this weird little clip thing on the back that goes all the way through. It's about the same length as the alternator. But before I do that, I've got to remove the terminals, of course. Sorry, I forgot to say that. So remove the terminals, remove this earth that's there, which will allow you to remove the wiring loom out of the way. You just... Oh... Maybe I might be able to... I'm going to have to play that one by ear, I think, that earth. I might actually have to remove the airbox because the bolt is actually underneath the airbox to remove that so I can get it out of the way. Oh no, I'll play that by ear. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward, bit of a pain in the ass, but it's not my most complicated alternator. It's better than a Toyota alternator, so not as easy as like my old Commodore. That was the easiest I've ever done, but that's what we're going to do. Parts that you need: I'd get myself a fender protector because they're working over here. You might accidentally drop your alternator on the fender if you're floppy. To get the alternator pulley off, I'm going to use one of these, and it is this 32 spline socket. You have to use a rattle gun. If you do not have one, take it to a mechanic, pay 10 bucks or whatever, and get them to remove it. You have to use a rattle gun. You cannot take this pulley off that rattle gun because the pulley on the Navara doesn't have the locking mechanism like all the other cars do. It only takes this. There's no spline or anything that you can lock the alternator shaft in place to allow you to torque this off. You have to literally put on the ground, put a rag over your pulley, hold it down, and then hit it off with the rattle gun at full power. So yes, obviously you need alternator pulley. I went with the new line. The genuine ones are way overpriced for what they are. Before you put it on, of course, make sure that it fits. This one should fit. I've measured all the sides. You got your cap, got your pulley, and it spins on there. So sockets, spanners, all that sort of stuff. You need all that. Got my manual. Got an inspection mirror so that I can have a look and assess things before I start taking things apart. Rattle guns and stuff like that. Got another socket set. This is a better quality one. This one I'm going to use for getting the bolts off and whatnot. Breaker bar for your drive belt, and lots of lubricant because you need to spray the bearings and the spline of the alternator before you start rattling it off to make it a little bit easier. And that's pretty much it. So I'll go over the procedures again. Remove battery terminals, remove engine cover, remove drive belt, remove wiring loom, or remove the two pipes first. probably be easier to remove the two parts first, then wiring looms, and that way you get access easier to the terminals. And if I have to remove the airbox, we'll approach that when we come to it, but I'm hoping I can avoid it. Like I said, less work I have to do, because I really don't want to accidentally damage the MAF sensor, because that would really suck. So yeah, let's get started. So I'm going to start off by removing the battery terminals. Okay, when it comes to removing the engine cover, a lot of people struggle with this. You can lift it up and take the rubber bushes with you, or you can just lift it up and just pull towards you. It will just sort of pull out. It's hard to do with one hand, you need two hands. But you just undo that, just pull it out towards you, and that's all you need to do. Okay, so now it's time to get the auto tensioner off to relieve tension. Well, not off, but like adjusted, so then that way. So the auto tensioner is that one there. You can see the mirror pointing out. You just put the socket on there, and then you just tighten to loosen. So we'll do that next, and we'll get the belt off. Okay, so I'm having issues getting the breaker bar to fit in there, so I need to make room. So I'm going to take off the intercooler piping first now. Okay, so the breaker bar doesn't fit in there, it's too long, so I'm going to use a 1/4 inch socket with a extending handle, so now I get some leverage to get the drive belt off. So we're going to do that now. I'm having a lot of difficulty trying to get the drive belt off, purely because I just don't have the right type of equipment for this. So to give myself a little bit more room for leverage, I'm going to have to take the airbox out now. I just don't have a serpentine belt handle. It's like a flat bar with basically a socket at the end of it. You use them in these type of environments. It's very tight space, and none of my sockets have enough clearance, so I'm going to remove the airbox to give me that little bit of room so I can get the handle down and relieve tension. So it's just what I have to do now. Okay, so this is a good example of using the right hose clamps for the job. If you can have a look there, it's bitten into the intake pipe, so that intake pipe actually needs cleaning. I'm gonna have to disconnect everything and wash it with warm soap, and then I'm gonna wrap it with some heat wrap just to protect it, and I'm gonna have to replace a whole unit now. So this is also a good excuse to look in your turbo, make sure everything's all good. Everything looks all good in there. It's a bit dirty, but not too much. It's actually not that bad. So if it was really caped in there, then I'd be worried, but so it's not too bad. And my MAF sensor is pretty nice and clean too, which is even better. So so yeah, that's good news. Okay, so I've been at it for a couple of hours. I've tried different methods. The easiest way, take the airbox out, disconnect that, then that way you can move this out, feed the alternator in underneath. I tried to bring it up through here, no cigar. Best take the airbox out, feed up on this, so much easier. Now the only hard part is getting it off, which I am doing slowly. As you can see, it is coming off, but it is tight and very seized. So I'm just working it bit by bit. Got some D40 in there to let it soak. But yes, it's quite a battle. Just take your time. You don't want to damage any of that thread. So I'm gonna give this a bit of a break. But it's a 50mm socket, and you use this adapter on it. And this is very hot, obviously, so I'm just letting it breathe a little bit. Use a rag, hold really fucking tight. You don't want the pulley to move, you want the inside shaft to move. Then it will unwind. But yeah, so that's where I'm at now. So she's out, got to replace the pulley, and then basically everything's reverse. So I'll go through everything again. Disconnect battery terminal, take off that. I decided to take off all the intercooler piping and all the hoses first, so then that way I have more room to alleviate the automatic trencher. Once I take the belt off, disconnect all the cords at the back. I've done all these little clips, the push in, I've just undone them all off the bracket here, and here, just to give me a little bit more flexibility. take out the airbox, feed the alternator through, and then go through and start tackling the pulley. So I'll let that set for a bit, and then we'll get back to you when everything's all together. Okay, with much difficulty I was able to get the old one off. As you can see, she is fucking rooted. It was a lot of effort to get this off, even with the rattle gun at max power. Just little bit by little bit. Here's the new one, all nice and clean and shiny. As you can see, I was on the brink of utter catastrophic failure. It started melting. I'm still going to use just a pulley on it and use this alternator for now. It still works. I'll just basically wait until it starts to fail and replace the whole alternator unit, because yeah, she's getting a bit sort of tired in there, but it will last me for a couple of years with this new pulley at least. So yeah, we'll put the new pulley on. You just need to do it up hand tight. It's only like 64 newton-meters torque, so yeah, just get the new pulley on and do everything in reverse and swear some more. Okay, so unfortunately the alternator's gone. I'm gonna just have to replace the alternators. What I've done is just put all the pipes back on, disconnect the batteries completely, and we're just basically gonna leave this as is, all tubing and stuff sealed up, all wiring and whatnot's covered. Yeah, and we're just gonna have to wait until we get a new alternator, which is gonna take me some time to save up money. It's about $500 and something, nearly 600. So that's where we're at now. This is what happens with cars, unfortunately, but you don't know until you find out. It's better than paying someone hundreds and hundreds of dollars for them to say your alternator's gone, but you can't afford to get it replaced anywhere, and now your car's stuck there. So at least at home, you know, it's not so bad. But yeah, that's it.
A few moments later.
Okay, so it has now been 3.5 weeks to 4 weeks later. I've taken the battery out so that way we can charge her. She's still got power in her, so that's a good thing. It means my battery's not dead. So today we're going to replace the alternator after the failed attempt of replacing the overrunning clutch pulley, because the shaft is kind of fucked. So basically what happens is when these seize up, they can get so hot that they can melt the shaft, and that's what's happened here. You see how all that metal has melted into the shaft of the alternator. The alternator still works, but you would need to replace this and do a whole recon, which is just as expensive as buying a aftermarket new alternator. So basically what this thing is supposed to do, if we just screw it on here, that's a good little representation. So it spins, it locks this way, so then that way when the car's running, it spins that way. When the car revs low or has some sort of basically knee-jerk reaction, usually like downshifting, what happens is the actual belt goes this way instead of that way, and what that does is this pulley locks this way and free spins that way. So when it goes the opposite way, the pulley is supposed to free spin in the opposite direction that the car is driving in, so then that way it doesn't allow the belt to jump and wear prematurely. That's the idea behind it. But what happens is these clutches in these, they don't last long and they fail and they seize. And that's what's happened. So if you see, I'm spinning it, but it's I mean, it's just come off the thread, but but basically essentially it doesn't free spin. I mean, that's just loosely coming off the thread. So but the clutch, oh, fuck's sake, let me show you properly when I get this fucking thing off. This is how hard it is to bloody get it off the thread. So basically this should spin freely in my hand, but it's not moving, so it's seized. And if you have a look in there, that is extremely worn. So she was on the edge of basically throwing this pulley. And actually probably worse, I reckon it would have actually seized on here, molted on here, and I actually think this whole shaft would have sheared off, because it's already eating into the metal from the heat. So So anyway, so we got this new alternator. I'm gonna go with the Jazz Oceana. It's a 150 amp alternator, which is what this is. So this is the original part number, and it's got one of these style fittings on it, and it's got the neutral there, and then it's got a little clamp at the back there for the wiring loom, which I have to try and figure out how to get that off. So that's the part number for this bad boy, and I'll get her out. So this is what the brand newie looks like. Look how clean she is. So same fitting, same orientation. It's a 150 amp, just like the other. The pulley size, if you put them up next to each other. Oops. Put them up next to each other there. They're the same. So this is a genuine Mitsubishi alternator. This is also a Mitsubishi alternator, just Oceana. Also manufactured in the same factory, so it's exactly the same alternator but cheaper. These cost about, if you were to buy through Nissan, over $1,000. If you were to buy through other companies, you're looking about $800 and something. This is about $649. Sorry, $45 through Autobahn, and Autobahn saved my life with all these problematic issues that I've been having. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to swap this. I'm just going to unscrew that. That just unscrews like that, so you can put it in the back of that. And we're just basically going to take everything out of the car because I put everything back loosely in, and then we're just going to swap the alternators. And before I go on about that, this pin here, it's easier to get the alternator on the bottom first, slide the pin through, loosely do it, and then you can flick the alternator to the top and then do this bolt up here. I was looking through all the forums and the manuals, and it says it's easier to do that way than it is to do from top to the bottom, because the bottom can be a little bit tight, and the fitting that goes in between here, so it's best to get that over and done with, and then once that, just flip her up, put that bolt, just lock her in place a little bit, and then that way you can tighten them up properly. Just be careful not to cross thread, because if you cross thread you're fucked. So just keep that in mind, like all automotive shit. And let's get started on it. So what we're going to do, it's basically the same process as I took all this off. So the battery's already disconnected. Take this off, take this off, take this off. The airbox, I discovered, undo that and then just pull it off. There's two little buttons in the center and in here, but if you actually just pull up and out, the whole airbox just comes through, and the two screws that hold the buttons in actually come out through the bottom. That's how you do it. The manual is very confusing, but that's how you take the whole airbox out, and of course you got to disconnect your mass sensor, but we have to do that anyway to move the wiring loom out, so hopefully it won't take too long. And then once everything's back in, I'll clean this up and then sort of fix the sort of damage that these clamps have done to the hose temporarily through some exhaust tape. So which is just like a really soft heat resistant tape designed to wrap around exhaust to sort of short term prevent leaks, so we'll use that. So demonstrate what I'm talking about with the airbox. See these plugs? You pull up, they just come out. So yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to just undo this earth clamp here, and that will allow this wiring loom to be a little bit moved. As you can see, I've undone the harnesses on the brackets and stuff, even that one, to just make it a little bit easier to maneuver this out of the way. Then we want to get the alternator on that, feed the bottom pin through, lock her in, flip her up, and yeah, once that's done, then we torque her down. They don't need to be super tight, they just need to be basically like firm tight. You can't get a torque wrench in there, so even if you wanted to do that option, you're just not going to be able to do it. There is supposed to be a locking pin in the pulley, which I think is actually that there, and it's supposed to use a 3mm screwdriver or hex screw, and it locks in the pulley, but I don't actually see how that fucking works at all. Unless it goes all the way out there and then locks in on this, maybe. But I don't think I'm going to fuck around with that, because I just have a funny feeling it doesn't work as well as the manual says. And a lot of people that I've seen with the pulleys that use the locking, sorry, there's a fly on there, that was using the locking function of the auto tensioner, they tend to run into a bit of a head fuck where they can't actually tighten it fast enough, which is loosen it tight enough so then that way it basically locks into place. So I'm gonna do it the old school way, where I just sort of muscle and grit to sort of hold it in place, and then sort of run the pulley over the belt over the pulleys. I'm gonna do it that way instead, because I just don't see how I can lock that in easily without a lot of fucking around, which is probably going to cause me more headaches. So yeah, anyway, we're going to play this by ear, I think. Again, putting it on, I already know how it all comes off, so you don't need to disconnect the turbo. That's why we take out the airbox. So by taking out the airbox, you don't have to worry about disconnecting that, because that's a real kind of a clip to get off, so just going to leave that there. So with this loose enough and this out of the way, we can feed the alternator up through here without any issues. Alright, so I've run into a problem. This is the factory bottom pin for the alternator, so it threads in just like easy like that. That's where it's supposed to be. I don't know what thread it is. Okay, so this bad boy unfortunately goes in, and that's it. It's the wrong fucking thread. I don't know what to do. So I'm gonna look at some options. I wonder if I can swap this with that one. I don't know, but I'm gonna figure that out. I can't get another alternator, unfortunately. It has to be this one, so we're gonna fucking play this one by ear, I think. Fuck, it's just what we need. Working on cars, nothing is ever straight fucking forward. Okay, so it's been several long hours of working on this car. So the alternator's in. The reason why it's taken me so long is the bottom nut is a crush, so it is a cut nut, so it's really fucking tight, and since I don't have the crazy best tools, it took me a long time to just do the bottom nut until basically I couldn't do it no more. She's in there pretty tight. It's 55 Nm torque for the bottom, 17 Nm torque on the top, so it's not that tight. The next challenge was actually doing the belt. That took me quite a few hours, at least 2 hours to do, because again I don't have the tools to do the job properly. I managed to do some funky ass shit involving this ratchet and this bar that goes over the handle, and then when I got it, I did use the locking pin because I had no other. So basically this, I put that in the hole, which is when the holes line up, you put that in and it locks the tension in place, allowing you to get the belt on. Once the belt's on, you can then release tension, and then you got to make sure that the belt is seated correctly and the ribs are all lined up perfectly, which they are. Normally the book tells you to turn the crank to level out everything. That is recommended to do it, but I can't do it because I don't have the ability to get in there and do that. Without a lift or without this being on jack stands, you would have to go underneath and do it, but I don't have the luxury of that, so I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and hope that I did a good job, which I'm pretty sure I did. I've done this on many other cars before. So now I've just got to put the wiring harness back in, and then put the tubes, airbox in, then put the pipes back in the inbox, which I got to clean that up still. I got to clean up and around there too, around the turbo, and get all that gunk out. The battery should be charged by now, and then once all this is done, I will start the car, and then I will take her to the servo and get some fresh fuel in her. So yeah, that's how to change alternator. It's not fun. I hate it. It's a crap like the job, but I'd rather do it than pay thousands of dollars, and now I know what to do next time. So I'll start again. Once the alternator's out, put this alternator in. That crushed the nut on this side. Sometimes when you get them brand new, they're not seated properly. Use some clamps, clamp down the nut to make it seat properly, slide it in, put the guide bolt in, flip up to the top, put the top bolt in, and then start tightening the bottom until you basically hand tight so you can't go no more, and then do the top as well. So 55 for the bottom, 17 for the top. Then once you've done that, then put the belt back on using the auto tensioner. I would recommend using the lug if you don't have anything to give you the leverage or the space to, you know, if you're working underneath your car, you had the plenty of leverage to do it all, so it's not an issue. But if you're working above the car, it's a little bit hard. So I would use a locking pin, just an Allen key. Do that. Once I lock in place, put the belt on, release tension, tighten it all up, make sure it's all seated properly in the ribs, and then start putting the harnesses back together. And then once you do the harnesses back together, then do the pipes, get the airbox, do this pipe, then do that pipe, and then put the cover back on and you're done. So that's how to change the alternator. Normally it's like probably a 2-hour job, an hour and a half job if you're really fast, but everything's been going wrong for me, so this happens though. Alright, so I'm at the next stage now. We have the airbox in. So the airbox is in, the air intake's in. I've put the tape on it, sealed up the clamp. She's on there nice and tight. The turbo one's on there nice and tight. So now I've just got to put this pipe in and put the cover on and we're done. Okay, so the pipe's on, she's all nice and tight, they're all nice and tight, these are all nice and tight. All the clips are on, so everything's all plugged in. There's also a breather down here at the back of the airbox. Make sure when you take the airbox off that you disconnect that. It's just a little plastic clip that you squeeze in the back and it pulls out. It's annoying if you forget it and then you pull the airbox off and the airbox kind of sort of doesn't come out properly. So we're going to put the battery in and we're going to start her up and see if she works. Okay, the battery's in, power is on, so that's a good thing. Let's see if she starts. Alright, that's good. Alright, let's see if she'll start. Let's see what's going on. Belt's running good. Very little slay. Should be running a bit rough because the fuel in her is a bit shit. It's been sitting for a little bit, but not long enough that I should be concerned. A few fuel tanks will be fine. Nice deflection. That looks good. No wobble. The belt's working. Motor sounds good. Battery light's not on. It's running a bit rough. I'll do the pedal dance and but then I'll do the pedal dance and then I'll go for a drive. But that's good.